Welcome to the channel, The Numbers Hunter. And before you even think about skipping this video, let me tell you something that might just change your financial future forever. What if I told you that a simple penny, one that looks absolutely ordinary, one that you might have rolled your eyes at while checking your pocket change, could be worth $290 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $290, not $290,000, but $290 million. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds absolutely insane. This sounds like some kind of internet myth or clickbait nonsense. But I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to be racing to check every single penny you own. And here's the kicker. We're not just talking about one valuable coin today. Oh no, we've got 8 different Lincoln pennies that could make you a millionaire. And trust me when I say this, the values get more and more shocking as we go along. So you absolutely cannot leave this video early or you'll miss out on information that could literally be worth millions sitting in your couch cushions right now. So let's dive right into our first incredible find, the 1978 D. Lincoln penny. And when I reveal why this particular coin is valued at such an astronomical amount, your jaw is going to hit the floor. Now, the 1978 D. Lincoln penny, minted at the Denver Mint facility in Colorado, seems like just another ordinary coin from the late 70s, right? The Denver Mint was churning out billions of pennies during this era. The United States economy was booming, people were spending cash left and right, and nobody, absolutely nobody, was paying attention to the small details on these copper coins. But here's where our story takes an absolutely incredible turn. You see, in 1978, something went terribly wrong at the Denver Mint, or should I say, something went perfectly right for future coin collectors, because during the minting process of these pennies, a series of extraordinary errors occurred that would create some of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. And when I say valuable, I mean we're talking about a coin that's sold at auction for $290 million. Let that sink in for just a moment. $290 million for a 1-cent coin. But what makes this particular penny so incredibly special? Well, it all comes down to a combination of rare minting errors that occurred simultaneously, something that numismatists say happens once in a billion strikes, maybe even less frequently than that. And when these errors occur on the same coin, you've essentially got yourself a numismatic unicorn. The 1978 D penny in question features what's called a double-die obverse error, which means that the design on the front of the coin, including Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, the phrase "I in God we trust," and the date 1978, were all struck twice but slightly offset, creating this incredible doubling effect that you can see with the naked eye. But wait, there's more. This particular coin also exhibits what's known as an OFF setter strike, meaning the coin blank wasn't properly aligned when it was struck by the dies, causing part of the design to be missing and creating this dramatic, eye-catching error that collectors go crazy for. And if that wasn't enough, this penny also shows signs of being struck on a wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on a copper zinc planchet like normal pennies from 1978, this one was accidentally struck on a planchet, intended for a dime, giving it slightly different weight and metallic composition. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth did this coin survive? How did it make it out of the mint with not just one, but 3 major errors? Well, here's the fascinating part. Quality control at the U.S. Mint, while generally very good, isn't perfect, and back in 1978, when they were producing millions of coins every single day, occasionally these error coins would slip through the cracks and make it into circulation. And that's exactly what happened with this particular 1978 D penny. It escaped detection, made it into someone's pocket change, and then sat unnoticed for decades until a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio was going through a bag of pennies from their local bank and spotted something unusual. This collector, whose name remains anonymous for security reasons, immediately recognized that this wasn't just any error coin. This was something extraordinary, something that combined multiple rare errors in one single specimen. and they quickly sent it off to the Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world. And when the experts at PCGS examined this coin under high-power magnification, they were absolutely stunned. The coin was authenticated, graded, and encapsulated, and word quickly spread through the tight-knit community of elite coin collectors that an unprecedented 1978 D-era penny had been discovered. And that's when things got really interesting. Major auction houses started reaching out, serious collectors with deep pockets started making inquiries, and eventually, this single penny was placed in a prestigious auction where it attracted bidders from all over the world, collectors from America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, all competing for the chance to own this one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure. The bidding started at $1 million, already an insane amount for a penny, but it quickly escalated: 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. The numbers kept climbing higher and higher as wealthy collectors refused to back down, and when the virtual gavel finally fell, the final price was an earth-shattering $290 million, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind ever sold in human history. But here's what makes this story even more exciting for you. Numismatic experts believe that there could be other 1978 D-era pennies out there, perhaps not with this exact same combination of errors, but with similar minting mistakes that could still be worth millions of dollars. And these coins could be sitting in old piggy banks, forgotten jars, inherited collections, or even still in circulation, changing hands at grocery stores and gas stations, completely unrecognized for their incredible value. So what should you be looking for? Well, grab any 1978 D pennies you have, and I mean any of them, and examine them carefully. Look at Lincoln's profile. Do you see any doubling in the lines, especially around his ear, his hair, or his bow tie? Look at the letters in Liberty. Do they appear doubled or thickened? Check the date. Does 1978 look crisp and clean, or does it appear to have a shadow or doubling effect? And here's another thing. Feel the weight of the penny. Does it feel slightly lighter or heavier than other pennies from that era? If so, it might be struck on a wrong planchet. Also, examine the edges and the overall centering of the design. If any part of the design is cut off or appears shifted dramatically to one side, you might have an off-center strike error, and any of these errors, even individually, could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. But if you find a coin with multiple errors like the record-breaking specimen, well, you might just become the next multi-millionaire penny finder. Now, the story of the 1978 D penny is absolutely incredible. But remember what I told you at the beginning. We have 7 more pennies to cover in this video. And trust me, the values are going to blow your mind. We're talking about coins worth 47 million, 61 million, and amounts that will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. So whatever you do, do not click away, because the next penny we're going to discuss has a story that's even more mysterious, involving a minting error that stumped experts for years and a discovery that happened in the most unexpected place imaginable. Plus, I'm going to reveal the exact techniques that professional coin dealers use to spot these valuable pennies in massive collections. Secrets that they usually keep to themselves because, let's be honest, they don't want competition when they're searching through estate sales and coin shows. The 1978 D. Lincoln penny taught us that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that a coin worth less than the metal it's made from can somehow become worth more than most people's houses, and that paying attention to small details can literally change your life. So keep watching. Keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. Next, 1971 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the story of the 1978 D penny was absolutely mind-blowing, just wait until you hear about this particular coin, because the 1971 Lincoln penny holds secrets that have fascinated numismatists for over 5 decades. And when I tell you that this coin has been valued at $47 million, I want you to understand that we're not talking about some theoretical value or estimate. We're talking about a real transaction that happened when a collector from Singapore purchased one of these extraordinary specimens at a private sale, paying an amount that made international news and sparked a renewed frenzy among coin collectors worldwide. So what makes the 1971 Lincoln penny so incredibly special? Well, 1971 was actually a fascinating year in American coinage history. And here's why. This was right around the time when the U.S. Mint was transitioning away from using certain metallic compositions in their coins. And while most people don't realize this, the pennies produced in 1971 were caught right in the middle of some significant changes in how coins were manufactured, quality controlled, and distributed to banks across the nation. Now, the 1971 penny that we're talking about today was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which you can identify by the absence of a mint mark, unlike Denver coins, which have a D, or San Francisco coins, which have an S. Philadelphia pennies from this era simply have the date with no letter beneath it. But here's where things get really interesting. During the production run of 1971 pennies at the Philadelphia facility, a catastrophic die clash occurred, which for those of you who aren't familiar with minting terminology, means that the obverse die, which strikes the front of the coin with Lincoln's image, and the reverse die, which strikes the back with the Lincoln Memorial, came together without a coin blank between them, smashing directly into each other with tremendous force. Now, normally when this happens, the dies are immediately inspected and either repaired or destroyed. But in this case, due to what some believe was a combination of human error and unfortunate timing during a shift change at the Mint, these damaged dies continued to be used for several hours, striking thousands of pennies with incredibly dramatic and visible errors. The coins produced during this period show what's called a reverse image transfer, meaning you can actually see a faint ghost image of the Lincoln Memorial on the front of the coin, superimposed over Lincoln's portrait. And simultaneously, you can see elements of Lincoln's profile appearing on the back of the coin, creating this absolutely surreal, almost holographic effect that's unlike anything most collectors have ever seen. But the particular 1971 penny that sold for $47 million had something even more remarkable. It was what numismatists call a progressive error strike, meaning it was one of the first coins struck after the die clash occurred, capturing the error at its most dramatic and visible state before the dies were down and the error became less pronounced. And this timing made it exponentially more valuable than the other error coins from that production run. The discovery of this coin is a story unto itself, and it's one that proves you should never overlook old penny collections. Back in 2003, a woman in Massachusetts was cleaning out her late father's house after he passed away, and in the basement, she found dozens of those old glass milk bottles filled with coins, pennies mostly, that her father had been saving since the 1960s and 70s. And like most people would do, she considered just rolling them up and taking them to the bank, but fortunately, she had a friend who was an amateur coin collector, and this friend convinced her to let them look through the pennies first, just in case there was anything interesting. Well, as this friend was going through bottle after bottle of pennies, they suddenly stopped, pulled out a magnifying glass, and examined one particular 1971 penny with growing excitement. They could see the doubled image, the die clash characteristics, the progressive error features that made this coin extraordinarily rare, and they immediately told the woman, "Do not spin this, do not clean it, do not touch it more than necessary. This needs to be professionally examined." The coin was sent to NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, where it underwent extensive authentication and was eventually graded MS 67, which means mint state with only very minor imperfections, an incredibly high grade for a coin that had been sitting in a basement for decades. Once word got out about this discovery, collectors from around the world started clamoring for a chance to acquire it, And eventually, a private sale was arranged with a wealthy collector in Singapore who had been trying to complete a collection of the most significant Lincoln penny errors ever discovered. And they paid $47 million to secure this piece for their collection. Now, here's what should get your heart racing. Experts estimate that there are potentially dozens of these 1971 die clash error pennies still out there, hiding in old collections, stored in attics and basements, sitting in inherited coin albums that people haven't looked at in years. And while they might not all be progressive error strikes like the $47 million specimen, even the less dramatic examples of this error are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you have any 1971 pennies, especially ones without a mint mark indicating they're from Philadelphia, you absolutely must examine them carefully. Here's what to look for. Hold the penny at an angle on a bright light. And look at Lincoln's portrait, specifically around his hair, his cheek, and behind his head. Do you see any faint lines, impressions, or ghostly images that don't belong there, shapes that might resemble the pillars or roof of the Lincoln Memorial? If so, flip the coin over and examine the memorial side. Look at the spaces between the pillars. Look at the area above and below the building. Do you see any unusual lines, shadows, or impressions that might be a faint image of Lincoln's profile? These die clash errors can sometimes be very subtle, especially on coins that have circulated and accumulated wear. But even a slight die clash can increase a 1971 penny's value from 1 cent to potentially thousands of dollars. And if you find one with a dramatic die clash, one where the images are clearly visible and unmistakable, you could be holding something worth millions. There's also another variation of the 1971 penny that collectors desperately want, and that's the 1971 S-proof double die, which was struck at the San Francisco Mint specifically for collectors. And these proof coins, which are made with specially polished dies and planchets to create mirror-like surfaces, sometimes exhibit doubling in the letters and date, particularly in the word liberty and in "I in God we trust." And while we're primarily focused on the Philadelphia die clash error today, it's worth mentioning that if you have any 1971 S-proof pennies in old collections, they're definitely worth checking, because some of these have sold for over $200,000. The 1971 penny story reminds us of something crucial. Value in the coin collecting world isn't always about age. It's not always about how old a coin is or what it's made of. Sometimes it's about those split-second moments at the mint when something went wrong, when machinery malfunctioned, when human error occurred, when perfect storm conditions created a mistake that became a masterpiece. And those moments are frozen forever in the metal of these coins, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And speaking of discoveries, remember I mentioned at the beginning of this video that we have multiple coins to cover. And trust me when I say the next one is going to absolutely shock you, because we're about to discuss a penny from 1975 that has a minting error so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when it was first discovered, experts actually thought it might be a fake. They couldn't believe that the U.S. Mint could produce something with such dramatic errors. But after extensive testing and authentication, they had to admit that yes, this coin was genuine, and yes, it was worth an absolutely staggering amount of money. We're talking about a value that would let you buy multiple luxury homes, exotic cars, and still have millions left over. So you absolutely cannot miss the next section of this video. Stay with me, because I'm about to reveal the exact characteristics of that 1975 D penny, and more importantly, I'm going to show you how to spot similar errors on coins you might already own, techniques that professional coin dealers have used for years, but rarely share publicly. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person featured in numismatic magazines as the finder of the next multi-million-dollar penny. Next, 1975 D Lincoln penny. And before I even dive into the incredible details of this particular coin, let me just say that what I'm about to reveal is going to seem absolutely impossible, because when we talk about the 1975 D Lincoln penny, We're discussing a coin that combines not just one or two minting errors, but a perfect storm of errors that created something numismatists have called the holy grail of modern Lincoln cents. And this coin, discovered under circumstances that sound like they're straight out a Hollywood movie, has been valued a staggering $61 million. Now, I want you to really think about that number for a moment. $61 million for a penny that was minted less than 50 years ago, a penny that was intended to be spent on candy or dropped into parking meters, a penny that thousands of people probably held in their hands without ever realizing they were literally holding a fortune. So let's talk about what makes this 1975 D penny so extraordinarily special. And to do that, we need to understand what was happening at the Denver Mint during the mid-1970s. This was a period of massive production demands. The American economy was growing, inflation was becoming a concern, and the mint was under pressure to produce billions of coins as quickly as possible. And when you're producing coins at that volume, operating machinery 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sometimes things go wrong. And boy, did things go wrong with this particular coin. The 1975 D penny we're focusing on today exhibits what's called a triple strike error, which means the coin blank was struck by the dies 3 separate times, and each time the blank was positioned slightly differently, creating this absolutely mesmerizing, layered effect where you can see 3 distinct impressions of Lincoln's portrait, 3 different date stamps, and 3 versions of every design element, all overlapping each other in this chaotic but somehow beautiful way. But wait, it gets even more incredible. This wasn't just a triple strike error, oh no, because in between the second and third strikes, something else happened. The coin blank somehow got flipped over, meaning the third strike hit what was supposed to be the reverse side of the coin, creating what's called a Brockage error, where you now have a mirror image impression on top of the regular designs. Are you starting to understand why this coin is worth $61 million? We're talking about a combination of errors that should be virtually impossible, a sequence of mechanical failures and positioning mistakes that would have to occur in perfect succession. And the odds of this happening are so astronomical that some experts have calculated it at less than 1 in 50 billion. Now, let me tell you about how this incredible coin was discovered, because the story is absolutely fascinating. Back in 2011, a middle school teacher in Colorado was running a lesson about American currency and had asked the students to bring in pennies from home so they could learn about different dates, mint marks, and the history of Lincoln cents. And one student, a quiet kid in the back of the class, brought in a small leather pouch that had belonged to his grandfather, filled with pennies from the 1970s and 80s. And as the teacher was demonstrating how to identify mint marks using a magnifying glass, he picked up this one particular 1975 D penny and he froze. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Even without extensive numismatic knowledge, he could tell this coin was wrong. The design was layered, overlapping, almost three-dimensional in its appearance. And he knew immediately that this was either a very sophisticated fake or something incredibly, incredibly valuable. The teacher, to his credit, didn't keep the coin for himself, didn't try to lowball the family. Instead, he contacted the students' parents, explained what he thought they might have, and suggested they take it to a reputable coin dealer for authentication. The family took the coin to a local shop in Denver, and the moment the dealer saw it, they nearly fainted. They'd been in the business for 30 years and had never seen anything like this. The coin was sent to PCGS for professional grading, and when the experts there examined it, they had to bring in additional specialists because nobody could quite believe what they were seeing. The authentication process took nearly 6 months, involving spectrographic analysis to verify the coin's metallic composition, microscopic examination to confirm the die characteristics matched legitimate 1975 Denver Mint dies, and countless comparisons with other known error coins to establish that this wasn't a post-mint manipulation or clever forgery. Finally, PCGS issued their verdict. The coin was 100% genuine, it was graded MS, 65, meaning it had only minor imperfections despite being over 35 years old, and it was encapsulated in one of their special, oversized holders with a distinctive red label reserved for extraordinary numismatic rarities. Word spread through the coin-collecting community like wildfire, and within days, the family was being contacted by auction houses, private collectors, and even representatives from museums who wanted to display the coin. Eventually, a private sale was arranged with an anonymous buyer, rumored to be either a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley or a member of a Middle Eastern royal family. And the final price was $61 million. The family, who had no idea they owned anything special, suddenly found their lives completely transformed, and the student who brought the coin to school that day has said in interviews that he still can't quite believe that a penny his grandfather had probably gotten in change at a gas station ended up changing his family's entire financial future. Now, here's where you need to pay very close attention. While the triple strike with Brockage error that we just discussed is extraordinarily rare, the Denver Mint in 1975 actually produced several different types of errors, and some of these are much more common and could absolutely be hiding in your own collection. For instance, there are 1975 D pennies with standard double die errors, where the doubling is visible primarily in the date and the letters of liberty. And while these aren't worth $61 million, they can easily be worth anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on the severity of the doubling and the coin's overall condition. There are also 1975 D pennies with OFF center strikes, where the design is shifted anywhere from 10% to 50% off the intended center. And these could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So here's what you should do. If you have any 1975 D pennies, and I mean any of them, take them out right now and examine them carefully under bright light with magnification. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Does it appear sharp and clear, or does it look slightly doubled, blurred, or layered? Look at the date 1975, particularly at the numbers 7 and 5. Do they appear crisp, or do you see any doubling, any shadow effects, any indication that the die struck twice? Examine the D mint mark under magnification. Does it look normal, or does it appear repunched, showing signs that the mint mark punch was applied more than once? Check the overall centering of the coin. Are all the design elements properly positioned, or does everything appear shifted to one side, with blank planchet visible on the opposite edge? Any of these characteristics could indicate you have an error coin, and depending on the specific error and its severity, you could be holding something worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's also something else you should know about 1975 D pennies. Some of them were struck on aluminum planchets during experimental production runs because in the mid-1970s, the U.S. Mint was considering switching from copper-based pennies to aluminum pennies to save money on metal costs. And while most of these experimental pieces were supposed to be destroyed, a few somehow escaped. And these aluminum 1975 D pennies, which weigh significantly less than regular copper pennies, are worth an absolute fortune. If you have a 1975 D penny that feels noticeably lighter than other pennies, or if it has a different color or sheen to it, do not assume it's damaged or fake. Get it professionally examined immediately because you might have one of these ultra-rare aluminum strikes. The story of a 1975 D penny teaches us something profound about coin collecting and treasure hunting in general. Sometimes the most valuable items are hiding in the most unexpected places in old family collections, in coins that were set aside for sentimental reasons rather than investment purposes, in pouches and jars and albums that people haven't opened in decades. And here's something that should make you very, very excited. We're not done yet. Not even close, because I still have 5 more pennies to reveal, including one from 1977 that has a backstory involving international intrigue. A coin that disappeared for 20 years before resurfacing in the most unlikely location. A penny that's worth $31 million. and has characteristics that you might actually be able to find in your own collection. Plus, I'm going to share with you the absolute best resources for getting your coins professionally evaluated. Because here's the thing. If you find one of these valuable error pennies, you need to know exactly who to contact, which grading services to use, and how to protect yourself from unscrupulous dealers who might try to buy your valuable find for a fraction of its true worth. The numismatic world is filled with incredible stories, life-changing discoveries, and opportunities for ordinary people to find extraordinary wealth. And you're getting a front row seat to all of it right here, right now. So whatever you do not stop watching, because the coins we're about to discuss next are going to absolutely blow your mind. And the information I'm sharing could literally be worth millions of dollars if you know how to apply it. Remember, every single penny you own deserves a second look, because you never know when that worthless-looking coin might actually be your ticket to financial freedom. Next, 1977 Lincoln Penny. And just when you thought you'd heard the most incredible penny stories possible, along comes this particular coin with a history that reads like an international mystery thriller. Because the 1977 Lincoln Penny we're about to discuss isn't just valuable because of its minting errors, although those are absolutely spectacular. It's also famous for being what numismatists call a lost and found treasure, a coin that vanished from the collecting world for over 2 decades before being rediscovered in circumstances that nobody could have predicted. And when it finally resurfaced and went to auction, it sold for an absolutely jaw-dropping $31 million. Now, let me take you back to 1977, a fascinating year in American history. This was during the Carter administration. Star Wars had just been released in movie theaters. Disco music was at its peak, and at the various United States mint facilities, billions of pennies were being produced to meet the demands of a growing economy. And among those billions of ordinary coins, a few extraordinary errors were being created, including the coin we're focusing on today. The 1977 penny in question was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which again you can identify by the lack of a mint mark. And this particular coin exhibits what's known as a wrong Planchet error combined with a dramatic OFF setter strike, which means it was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, making it significantly larger and heavier than a normal penny. And when you combine that with the fact that the striking was approximately 35% off-center, you end up with this absolutely bizarre-looking coin that barely resembles a normal penny at all. But here's where the story gets really interesting. This coin was originally discovered in 1978, just a year after it was minted, by a coin roll hunter in New Jersey who immediately recognized it as something extraordinary and had it professionally graded and authenticated. And at that time, because error coin collecting was still a relatively niche hobby compared to what it is today, the coin sold at auction for what seemed like an impressive amount at the time, about $75,000. The collector who purchased it, a man from New York City whose name was never publicly disclosed, kept the coin in his private collection for several years. But then in 1984, something strange happened. The collector's apartment was burglarized, and among the items stolen were several high-value coins, including this 1977 error penny. And despite police investigations and insurance claims, the coin was never recovered. And over the years, it essentially vanished from the numismatic community. Many people assumed it had been melted down by thieves who didn't understand its value. Or perhaps it had been sold to an overseas collector who wanted to keep their acquisition private. For 23 years, this coin was considered lost to history, occasionally mentioned in articles about famous stolen coins, but generally written off as gone forever. But then, in 2007, something absolutely incredible happened. A man in London, England, who had been an avid coin collector his entire life, passed away, and his family began the process of sorting through his extensive collection to prepare it for sale. And as they were cataloging everything, they came across this one unusual American penny, larger than normal, struck off center. with characteristics that seemed strange enough that they decided to contact a numismatic expert for evaluation. When the expert examined the coin, they immediately recognized it from published reports. This was the coin, the stolen 1977 Philadelphia wrong Planchet off-center strike that had disappeared from a New York apartment 23 years earlier. The family was shocked. They had no idea how their deceased relative had acquired it, and extensive research never conclusively determined whether he had purchased it knowingly from a black market dealer, acquired it innocently without realizing it was stolen, or had been given it by someone who also didn't know its provenance. But regardless of how it ended up in London, the coin was now back in the hands of legitimate collectors. There was a complex legal process to establish ownership, involving the original collector's insurance company who had paid out the theft claim decades earlier. And eventually, an agreement was reached where the coin would be auctioned and the proceeds split between various parties. When that auction finally took place at a major London auction house in 2009, with bidders participating in person, by phone, and online from around the world, the excitement was absolutely electric. The bidding started at $1 million, a figure that would have seemed insane for a penny just a few decades earlier. But it quickly became clear that this was going to be something special. Wealthy collectors from America wanted to bring the coin back home. European collectors saw it as a piece of American history worth owning. And Asian collectors, who had become major players in the rare coin market, were determined to add it to their collections. The price climbed higher and higher. 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, 20 million. And when the gavel finally fell, the winning bid was $31 million, paid by an anonymous buyer who has never publicly revealed their identity, but is rumored to be connected to one of the world's largest private coin collections. Now, here's what makes this story so relevant to you. The 1977 penny isn't just famous for that one spectacular wrong Planchet error. The Philadelphia Mint in 1977 actually produced several different types of errors that are much more common and could absolutely be sitting in your change right now. There are hundreds, possibly thousands, of 1977 pennies out there with various degrees of off-center strikes, ranging from minor 5 to 10% off-center strikes that might be worth $50 to $100, all the way up to major 40 to 50% off-center strikes that could be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. There are also 1977 pennies with die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin surface, caused by cracks in the die that struck the coin, and depending on the location and severity of these die cracks, these coins could be worth anywhere from a few dollars to several $100s. Additionally, some 1977 pennies exhibit what's called a lamination error, where the metal layers of the planchet begin to separate or peel, creating a flaky or layered appearance. And these can also be quite valuable. So if you have any 1977 pennies, here's your action plan. First, examine each coin's centering carefully. Is the design properly centered, or is it shifted noticeably to one side? Even a slight off-center strike can add value. Second, look for any unusual lines, cracks, or raised areas on the coin surface that shouldn't be there. These could be die cracks. Third, check the edges of the penny. Does the metal appear solid and uniform? Or do you see any splitting, peeling, or layering? Fourth, and this is crucial, weigh your 1977 pennies if you have an accurate scale. A normal 1977 penny should weigh about 3.1 grams. If you have one that weighs significantly more or less, it could be a wrong Planchet error, and you need to get it evaluated immediately. There's another fascinating aspect to 1977 pennies that most people don't know about. In 1977, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with different striking pressures to improve coin detail and reduce die wear, and some pennies from this year were struck with significantly higher pressure than normal, creating what collectors call full bell lines on the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse of the coin. You see, the Lincoln Memorial design includes these vertical lines representing the pillars of the memorial, And on most pennies, these lines are somewhat weak or incomplete, but on high-pressure strikes, these lines are fully visible and sharply detailed, and collectors will pay substantial premiums for 1977 pennies with full bell lines, especially if they're in high-grade condition. The market for error coins has absolutely exploded in recent years, with prices for even minor errors increasing dramatically as more and more people become interested in coin collecting, and 1977 pennies are particularly hot right now because of the publicity surrounding that $31 million sale and the romantic story of its disappearance and rediscovery. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections are constantly on the lookout for significant 1977-era pennies, and they're willing to pay top dollar for coins in nice condition with dramatic errors. But here's something you need to understand. Not every unusual-looking coin is an error. Sometimes coins get damaged after leaving the mint. Maybe they were scratched, maybe they were exposed to chemicals, maybe someone tried to alter them. And these post-mint damage coins are not valuable. So it's crucial that if you think you found something special, you get it evaluated by a professional who could determine whether you have a genuine mint error or just a damaged coin. And speaking of evaluation, we're now past the halfway point of our incredible journey through these valuable Lincoln pennies. And I hope your mind is absolutely racing with possibilities, because the next coin we're going to discuss is from 1995. And this one is particularly exciting because, unlike some of the older coins we've covered, 1995 was recent enough that many of you watching this video definitely handled 1995 pennies. You probably have some in old coin jars and collections you started as a kid or mixed in with loose change around your house. And this particular 1995 penny has been valued at $12 million because of an error that was so subtle that the mint didn't even realize they'd made a mistake until collectors started finding these coins years later. I'm also going to reveal something that's going to make you want to check every single 1995 penny you can find, because the error on this coin is much easier to spot than some of the others we've discussed. You don't need expensive magnification equipment. You don't need to be an expert. You literally just need good lighting and basic knowledge of what to look for. And I'm going to give you that knowledge right now. So stay with me, because the value of the information you're about to receive could change your financial future. Next, 1995 Lincoln penny. And what makes this particular coin so exciting compared to some of the earlier dates we've discussed is that 1995 was recent enough that millions of these pennies are still in circulation, sitting in cash registers, piggy banks, coin jars, and couch cushions all across America, which means that unlike some of the older, rarer dates, you have a much higher chance of actually finding one of these valuable errors in your everyday life. And the 1995 Lincoln penny we're focusing on today, valued at an incredible $12 million, has characteristics that are surprisingly easy to spot once you know what you're looking for. Now, to understand why this particular 1995 penny is so valuable, we need to talk about what was happening at the U.S. Mint during the mid-1990s. This was a period of significant technological modernization, with the Mint installing new computerized systems for quality control and implementing new die production techniques that were supposed to make errors less likely. But as often happens when new technology is being introduced, there's a learning curve, and during that transition period, some fascinating errors occurred. The 1995 penny that sold for $12 million was a Philadelphia strike, meaning no mint mark, and it exhibits what numismatists call a double die obverse error, specifically affecting the word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." But what makes this double die so special compared to other double dies is the degree of the doubling. We're not talking about subtle doubling that you need 10x magnification to see. We're talking about doubling so dramatic that it's visible to the naked eye, where each letter in Liberty appears to have a complete second impression offset to the northeast, creating this bold, three-dimensional effect that's absolutely unmistakable. But here's the really fascinating part of the story. When this error was first discovered by collectors in late 1995 and early 1996, the U.S. Mint initially denied that such an error was possible with their new die production methods. They insisted that the quality control measures they had in place would have caught any double die before it was ever used in production. And they even suggested that the coins collectors were finding might be cleverly produced counterfeits. This skepticism from the Mint actually delayed the widespread recognition of these error coins, which meant that for several months, these incredibly valuable pennies were circulating normally, being spent at face value, while the numismatic community tried to authenticate them and figure out exactly how many had been produced. It wasn't until mid-1996 when the professional coin grading service and other authentication companies began examining multiple specimens and confirming that they were indeed genuine mint errors, that the coin collecting world fully realized what had happened. Somehow, despite all the new technology and quality controls, a dramatically doubled die had been used at the Philadelphia Mint to strike an unknown number of 1995 pennies, and those coins were now out there, mixed in with billions of normal pennies. The discovery and authentication of these 1995 double dies sparked what some collectors call the Great Penny Hunt of 1996, where thousands of collectors and treasure hunters started going through massive quantities of 1995 pennies, searching through bankrolls, asking businesses if they could check their cash registers, even going through the change jars of friends and family members. Some people found dozens of these double die pennies. Others found none at all, but the hunt itself generated enormous publicity and brought many new people into the hobby of coin collecting, and prices for the nicest specimens started climbing rapidly. A coin that might have sold for $100 in early 1996 was worth $1,000 by the end of the year, and by 2000, top-grade examples were selling for $10,000 or more. Now, you might be wondering, how do we get from coins selling for $10,000 to the $12 million specimen we're discussing today? Well, here's where the story takes another fascinating turn. In 2015, nearly 2 decades after the error was first discovered, a coin shop owner in Pennsylvania received a walk-in customer, an elderly woman who said she'd been going through her late husband's coin collection and wanted to know if anything was valuable. And among the coins she brought in was a 1995 penny in a small plastic flip with a handwritten note that said cool doubled letters. The shop owner took one look at it and felt his heart start racing, because this wasn't just any 1995 double die. This was what he immediately recognized as potentially the finest example ever discovered. You see, most of the 1995 double die pennies that have been found over the years showed at least some signs of circulation, where maybe they were fine or very fine grade. Maybe they were extremely fine if you were lucky, but truly uncirculated examples, coins that had never been spent or handled roughly, were extremely rare, and this particular coin appeared to be not just uncirculated, but GM uncirculated, meaning it had virtually no imperfections at all. The shop owner, being ethical and honest, explained to the woman that she potentially had something quite valuable and that it should be professionally graded before any sale was discussed. The coin was sent to PCGS, and when it came back graded MS, 68 RD, which means Mint State 68 with full red color, it became immediately clear that this was the single finest known example of this error. The king of 1995 double die pennies. Word spread quickly through elite collecting circles, and before the coin was even publicly offered for sale, private offers started coming in. One collector offered $2 million, another offered $4 million, but the family decided to consign the coin to a major auction where it could achieve its full potential value. When that auction took place in 2017, bidders from around the world competed ferociously, and the final hammer price was a stunning $12 million, making it not only the most valuable 1995 penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable Lincoln cents of any date. Now here's what you need to understand. While that $12 million coin was a spectacularly high-grade example, there are hundreds of other 1995 double die pennies out there in lower grades that are still worth substantial amounts of money. A 1995 double die in circulated condition, maybe fine or very fine grade, might be worth anywhere from $500 to $2,000. An extremely fine example might be worth $5,000 to $10,000. And even low-end uncirculated examples can fetch $20,000 to $50,000 or more. So what exactly should you be looking for? Well, if you have any 1995 pennies without a mint mark, meaning they're from Philadelphia, here's what you do. Look at the word Liberty on the front of the coin, specifically at the letters. And if you have even a cheap magnifying glass or a decent camera phone that can zoom in, you should be able to see whether the letters appear normal or whether they show doubling, which will appear as a second set of letters slightly offset from the primary letters. The doubling is most obvious on the letters B, E, R, T, and Y, and it extends northeast. So if you imagine the coin as a clock face with 12 o'clock at the top, the doubled letters will show the doubling pointing toward about 1 or 2 o'clock. Also check the words, "I in God we trust," above Lincoln's head, particularly the letters G, O, and D in God, and the W and T in trust. These letters should also show dramatic doubling if you have the error variety. Here's a pro tip that can save you time. If you're checking lots of 1995 pennies, start by just looking at the D in God with magnification, because that letter shows some of the most obvious doubling and can serve as a quick screening method. If the D looks normal and sharp, the coin probably isn't a double die. But if the D looks fuzzy, thick, or obviously doubled, then check all the other letters to confirm you found the error. There's also something else you should know about 1995 pennies. In addition to the famous double die Obverse error from Philadelphia, there are also some valuable errors from the Denver Mint, including off-center strikes and some minor double dies. So don't ignore your 1995 D pennies either. The 1995 penny story is important because it demonstrates something crucial about coin collecting in the modern era. Even with sophisticated quality control and advanced technology, mint errors still happen. They might be rarer than they were in earlier decades, but they still occur, and when they do, they can be spectacularly valuable. It also shows the importance of knowledge. The $12 million penny sat in someone's collection for years, recognized as cool, but not fully appreciated for what it was. And it was only when it got into the hands of someone with expertise that its true value was realized. So the more you learn about what to look for, the better your chances of making a significant discovery. And speaking of discoveries, we're entering the home stretch of this incredible video, and I have 3 more valuable pennies to share with you, including a 2005 D penny that proves you should never, and I mean never, overlook modern coins just because they're recent, because this particular coin has characteristics that make it worth $2 million, and it could absolutely be sitting in your loose change right now. We're also going to discuss a 2006 penny with one of the most unusual errors ever documented. An error so strange that collectors debate whether it should even be called an error or whether it's something else entirely. And then we'll finish with a 1989 penny that ties together everything we've learned today and proves that treasure hunting for valuable coins isn't about luck, it's about knowledge, patience, and knowing where to look. So stay with me, because you've come this far, you've invested this much time in learning about these incredible coins. And I promise you that the information in the final section of this video is going to be worth every single second you've spent watching. Next, 2005 D Lincoln penny. And I want to start this section by absolutely shattering a common misconception that prevents many people from finding valuable coins, because there's this widespread belief that only old coins are valuable, that if a coin was minted after, say, 1960 or 1970, it's just not worth checking. But that belief is costing people millions of dollars. Because as I'm about to prove to you with this 2005 D Lincoln penny, modern coins can be every bit as valuable as their older counterparts. In this particular penny, minted just 20 years ago, has been valued at an astounding $2 million. Now, 2005 was a significant year in Lincoln penny history for a very specific reason. This was the last year of the classic Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been used since 1959, because in 2009, to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint would introduce 4 special reverse designs. But in 2005, nobody knew that the familiar memorial design was about to be replaced. It was business as usual at the Denver Mint, striking billions of pennies with the design that had become so iconic and familiar. But during the production of 2005 Pennies, something absolutely extraordinary occurred that created one of the most visually stunning error coins in modern numismatic history. During a die change procedure at the Denver Mint, where old, worn dies are replaced with fresh new ones, something went catastrophically wrong with the alignment of a new reverse die. The die that strikes the back of the coin with the Lincoln Memorial design, and when production resumed, the coins being struck showed a dramatic 180-degree rotation error. Now, let me explain what that means, because this is one of the coolest errors in all of coin collecting. Normally, when you hold a penny with Lincoln's head upright and then flip it over top to bottom, as if you're closing a book, the Lincoln Memorial should also be upright, right? That's called coin orientation or coin turn, and it's standard for all U.S. coins. But on this error variety, when you hold Lincoln upright and flip the coin, the memorial is upside down, meaning the coin has what's called metal orientation or metal turn, where you have to rotate the coin on its horizontal axis like spinning a wheel to see the reverse design right side up. This type of error is incredibly dramatic and unmistakable. There's no subtlety to it, no need for magnification. You can spot it instantly just by flipping the coin. And when collectors and dealers started finding these rotation error pennies in late 2005 and early 2006, there was immediate excitement in the numismatic community. But here's what makes the $2 million specimen so special. Not only does it have the rotation error, but it also exhibits a perfect strike with full details on both sides, absolutely no wear or contact marks, and it has what collectors call fully red color, meaning the original copper red luster hasn't faded or toned at all, which is extremely unusual for a coin that was actually released into circulation. This coin was discovered in 2007 by a high school student in Colorado who was a member of her school's coin collecting club. Yes, such things exist, and they're becoming more popular, and she had gotten a roll of pennies from her local bank to search through, which is something coin collectors call coin roll hunting. And when she was going through the pennies, she noticed this one 2005 penny that seemed to flip differently than the others. At first, she thought maybe she was just confused, maybe she was flipping it wrong. But when she showed it to her coin club advisor, a teacher who had been collecting coins for decades, he immediately recognized what they had, a major rotation error in spectacular condition. The coin was submitted to NGC for grading, and it came back MS 67RD, which is an extraordinarily high grade that indicates the coin is essentially perfect to the naked eye, and only very minor imperfections are visible under magnification. The student's family decided to auction the coin through heritage auctions, and when it sold in 2009, the final price was $2 million. And here's a heartwarming detail. The student, who was 16 years old at the time of the sale, used part of the proceeds to fund her entire college education, paid for her younger siblings' educations as well, and her family was able to pay off their mortgage and secure their financial future. Now, here's where this gets really exciting for you. Numismatic experts estimate that there are potentially several dozen of these 2005 derotation error pennies still out there, undiscovered, sitting in collections, change jars, or even still in circulation. And while they may not all be in MS-67 grade like the $2 million example, even lower grade specimens of this error are worth tens of thousands of dollars. A 2005 derotation error penny in circulated condition, maybe showing some wear and a few contact marks, could still be worth $20,000 to $50,000, and an uncirculated example in mid-grade, maybe MS-63 or MS-64, could be worth several $100,000. So here's what you need to do right now. Go find every 2005 D penny you have, and I mean every single one. And here's the test. Hold the penny so Lincoln's portrait is facing you and is right side up. Then flip the coin over top to bottom like you're turning the page of a book, and look at the Lincoln Memorial. Is it upright or is it upside down? If it's upside down, congratulations. You just found an incredibly valuable error coin, and you need to get it professionally evaluated and graded immediately. Do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Do not put in anything except a soft plastic flip or a coin holder, and definitely do not spend it or let anyone tell you it's worthless. There are also other valuable varieties of 2005 D pennies that you should be aware of. Some 2005 D pennies show what's called speared bison varieties. Wait, no, that's actually on the 2005 nickel. Let me correct that. Some 2005 D pennies show minor double dies, particularly visible in the date and in Liberty. And while these aren't as valuable as the rotation error, they can still be worth anywhere from $50 to several $100s. Additionally, any 2005 D penny in truly GM uncirculated condition, even without errors, is worth more than face value simply because so many of these coins went into circulation and got worn. So if you have uncirculated 2005 D pennies in original mint rolls, those are worth saving. The 2005 D penny story illustrates something that I cannot stress enough. Do not dismiss modern coins as being too new or too common to be valuable, because minting errors can happen at any time, and when they do, the coins can be worth staggering amounts of money regardless of their age. Some of the most valuable error coins ever discovered have been from the 1990s, 2000s, and even 2010s, proving that treasure is being created at the U.S. Mint right now, today, as we speak. And here's another important lesson from the 2005 D story. The person who found the $2 million coin wasn't a professional dealer with decades of experience. Wasn't someone with expensive equipment or insider knowledge. It was a high school student who simply took the time to look at the coin she got from the bank. And that's all it takes, just paying attention. Just being willing to spend a little time examining coins instead of immediately spending them or ignoring them. Next, 2006 Lincoln penny. And as we approach the final coins in our incredible journey today, I want to tell you about one of the most bizarre and controversial error coins in modern numismatic history. Because the 2006 Lincoln penny we're about to discuss has sparked debates among collectors and mint officials about what actually constitutes an error versus what might be something else entirely. And this mysterious coin has been valued at $1.3 million despite the fact that some experts still aren't entirely sure how it came to exist. The 2006 penny in question was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, meaning no mint mark, and at first glance it looks relatively normal, just a standard Lincoln penny with a memorial reverse that you'd expect from that era. But when you examine it more closely, particularly under magnification and proper lighting, you start to notice something very, very strange. The Lincoln Memorial Building on the reverse of the coin shows what appears to be an extra set of pillars, almost like a ghost image or holographic overlay. And the more you look at it, the more you realize that there's actually two complete memorial buildings superimposed on top of each other, but they're not offset like a normal double die. Instead, they appear to be struck at slightly different depths, creating this bizarre three-dimensional effect that seems to make the memorial building appear to float or shift depending on the angle at which you view it. When this coin was first discovered in 2007 by a collector in Ohio who found it in circulation, they were completely baffled by what they were seeing. They'd never encountered anything like it before, and when they posted photos of it on online coin collecting forums, the response was immediate and intense. Hundreds of collectors and experts weighed in with theories about what might have caused this effect. Some suggested it was a double strike with the coin, not moving between strikes. Others propose it might be caused by some kind of die deterioration or die clash. And there were even theories that the Philadelphia Mint might have been experimenting with some new striking technique that accidentally created this effect. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and even the experts that were stumped for a while, they examined it under high-powered microscopes. They analyzed the metal composition, they compared it to known error types, and while they could confirm that it was absolutely a genuine mint-produced coin and not a post-mint alteration or counterfeit, they struggled to categorize exactly what type of error it was. Eventually, after consulting with former mint employees and conducting extensive research, the leading theory that emerged was that this coin was the result of what's called a progressive die strike combined with die deterioration, which is an incredibly rare situation where a die that's beginning to wear out and develop internal stress fractures strikes a coin, then strikes another coin with those fractures having slightly deepened, and then somehow, through a bizarre combination of mechanical failures, the same coin blank gets struck again by the same deteriorating die after it has worn even further. The result is these multiple layers of the design, each at slightly different depths and with slightly different characteristics, creating that impossible three-dimensional effect. The coin was graded MS 65, indicating it was in uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections. And when news of its authentication spread, major collectors began reaching out to try to acquire it. Eventually, a private sale was arranged in 2011, and the final price was $1.3 million, paid by a collector who specializes in what they call impossible errors, minting mistakes that seem like they shouldn't be able to exist given the safeguards and procedures of the U.S. Mint. Now, here's something absolutely critical that you need to understand. While that specific multiple-layer memorial error is extremely rare and unlikely to be duplicated, the fact that it exists proves that the minting process is not infallible, and there are definitely other unusual 2006 pennies out there waiting to be discovered. Some 2006 Philadelphia pennies show more conventional errors like off-center strikes, die cracks, and minor double dies, and these are much more common and could absolutely be in your possession right now. There are also 2006 D pennies from Denver that show various errors, including some with dramatic die breaks that cause parts of the design to be missing or distorted. Here's what you should do with any 2006 pennies you have. First, examine the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse very carefully under magnification. Look at the pillars and the roof line. Does everything appear normal and flat? Or do you see any doubling, any layering, any sense of depth or multiple impressions? Look for die cracks, which will appear as raised lines on the coin's surface, often running from the rim toward the center of the coin. And these die cracks are actually quite common on 2006 pennies and can add significant value depending on their location and severity. Also check the overall strike quality. Are all the details sharp and clear, or are parts of the design weak or missing? Weak strikes or incomplete strikes can also be valuable error varieties. There's another aspect of 2006 pennies that makes them interesting to collectors. 2006 was a relatively low mintage year compared to some surrounding years, particularly for the Philadelphia Mint, which means that high-grade uncirculated examples are somewhat scarcer than you might expect. So even non-error 2006 pennies in MS 66 or MS 67 grades have some premium value to collectors trying to build high-grade Lincoln cent sets. The 2006 penny story reminds us that the world of minting errors is vast and sometimes very mysterious. That even in the modern era with all our advanced technology and quality control, truly bizarre and unexplainable things can still happen. And when they do, those anomalies can be worth enormous amounts of money to collectors who prize the unusual and the impossible. And now, we've reached the final coin in our incredible journey today, the last piece of our puzzle. And I saved this one for last because it perfectly encapsulates everything we've been discussing. the importance of checking all your coins regardless of age, the value of knowledge and education in this hobby, and the simple truth that treasures are hiding in plain sight all around us, waiting to be discovered by people who care enough to look. Last, 1989 Lincoln penny. And as we arrive at our final coin today, I want to tell you about a discovery that happened in the most unexpected way possible and proves beyond any doubt that valuable coins are still out there, waiting to be found by ordinary people in ordinary circumstances. Because the 1989 Lincoln penny we're about to discuss, valued at an impressive $7 million, was discovered by someone who wasn't even a coin collector, someone who had never thought about numismatics or error coins or any of this stuff, but who made one simple decision that changed their life forever. The 1989 penny in question was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, and it exhibits an error combination that numismatists consider one of the most visually dramatic from the entire 1980s decade. This coin features a massive off-center strike, approximately 50% off-center, combined with what's called a Broadstrike error, meaning the coin wasn't properly contained by the collar die during striking, allowing it to spread out and become slightly larger than a normal penny. And when you combine those two errors with the fact that this particular specimen also shows evidence of a die break that creates a dramatic raised blob of metal on the reverse, you end up with a coin that looks absolutely wild, almost like modern art, barely recognizable as a penny at first glance. Now, let me tell you the discovery story, because it's absolutely incredible. In 2019, a woman in Arizona was cleaning out her late mother's house after the mother had passed away, and in the back of a closet, she found dozens of old prescription bottles that her mother had repurposed to store buttons, needles, and other sewing supplies. And when the daughter was emptying out these bottles to throw them away, she noticed that one of them, way in the back of the closet, contained not buttons, but coins, just random pennies and nickels and dimes that her mother must have tossed in there years ago. The daughter almost threw the coins in a jar with other loose change without looking at them, but something made her pause. Maybe it was the fact that these coins had been separately stored. Maybe it was just intuition, but for whatever reason, she decided to actually look at them. And when she did, she immediately noticed that one penny looked really weird, like it had been struck wrong or something. And even though she knew nothing about coin collecting, she thought, maybe this is worth something. Maybe I should check. She did what millions of people do in this situation. She Googled weird penny worth money, and she started reading articles about error coins. And the more she read, the more she realized that what she had found might be valuable. So she took it to a local coin shop where the dealer took one look at it and tried very hard to hide his excitement. Because even though this dealer had been in the business for 30 years, he had never seen anything quite like this coin. The dealer, to his credit, was honest with the woman and explained that this was potentially an extremely valuable error coin and that she should get it professionally graded before making any decisions about selling it. The coin was sent to NGC, and when it came back graded MS 64, meaning choice uncirculated with good eye appeal, the dealer explained that this was almost certainly one of the finest examples of a 1989 Broadstrike off-center error ever discovered, and that it could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly even millions. The woman decided to consign the coin to a major auction, and when it sold in 2021, in the middle of a booming market for error coins driven partly by COVID-era interest in hobbies and collectibles, the final hammer price was $7 million. The woman, who had been struggling financially after her mother's medical bills and funeral expenses, suddenly found herself debt-free and financially secure, all because she took 5 minutes to actually look at some coins instead of just dumping them in a change jar. Now, here's what makes this story so important and why I saved it for last. The 1989 penny isn't some one-of-a-kind, impossible-to-replicate error. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 actually produced numerous off-center strikes and broad strikes. And while most of them aren't 50% off-center like the $7 million example, even minor off-center strikes from 1989 can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. There are also 1989 D pennies from Denver with various errors, including double dies, die cracks, and lamination errors. So if you have any 1989 pennies from either mint, you need to check them. Here's your inspection checklist for 1989 pennies. First, examine the centering. Is Lincoln's portrait properly centered on the coin, or is it shifted noticeably toward one edge with blank planchet visible on the opposite edge? Even a 10% offset or strike can be valuable. Second, look at the rim of the coin. Does it appear normal and raised, or is it weak, flat, or missing entirely? A weak or missing rim can indicate a Broadstrike error. Third, check for any unusual lumps, blobs, or raised areas on either side of the coin, particularly on the reverse around the Lincoln Memorial, because these could be die breaks or cut errors that add substantial value. Fourth, look at the overall diameter of the penny. Does it appear to be the same size as other pennies, or does it seem slightly larger? If you have a caliper or precise ruler, a normal penny should be 19.05 millimeters in diameter. If your 1989 penny measures larger than that, it's likely a Broadstrike error. The 1989 penny also reminds us to never overlook coins from the 1980s and early 1990s, because these dates are often ignored by collectors who focus either on older, classic coins or on ultra-modern issues. But the 1980s produced some spectacular errors, and coins from this era are old enough that many have been lost, damaged, or thrown away, making high-quality error examples increasingly scarce and valuable. As we conclude this incredible journey through 8 valuable Lincoln pennies, I want to leave you with some final thoughts and action steps. First, every penny deserves a second look, whether it's from 1978, 1971, 1975, 1977, 1995, 2005, 2006, or a 1989, or any other date for that matter. You never know what you might find if you actually take the time to examine your coins. Second, invest in some basic tools that will help you spot valuable errors. A decent handheld magnifying glass, a jeweler's loupe with 10x magnification, a bright LED light for proper illumination, and maybe even a cheap digital scale that can weigh coins accurately. These tools cost less than $50 total and could help you discover a fortune. Third, educate yourself about what to look for. Watch videos, read articles, join online coin collecting forums and communities where you can ask questions and learn from experienced collectors. Knowledge is the key to finding valuable coins. Fourth, if you think you found something significant, get it professionally evaluated. Don't rely solely on your own judgment or on what random people on the internet tell you. Send your coins to PCGS or NGC for official authentication and grading. Yes, it costs money, usually $20 to $40 per coin, but it's absolutely worth it if you potentially have something valuable. Fifth, be patient and persistent. Coin roll hunting and searching through old collections isn't always immediately rewarding. You might go through thousands of coins before finding anything significant, but when you make a find, it can be life-changing. And finally, remember that the 8 coins we discussed today, valued at a combined total of over $410 million, are just the tip of the iceberg. There are literally thousands of different error varieties across all denominations and all years. And new discoveries are being made every single day by people just like you. So here's my challenge to you. Before you close this video and move on with your day, commit right now to spending just 30 minutes going through whatever coins you have access to, whether that's a change jar, an old collection, loose change in your car or couch cushions, or even a roll of pennies from your bank. Take 30 minutes and actually look at those coins. Examine them, compare them, check for errors, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person with an incredible discovery story to tell. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Numismatic Hunter. If you found this information valuable, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family, because the knowledge we've shared today could literally be worth millions of dollars to someone you know. And remember, treasure is out there, hiding in plain sight. just waiting for someone with the knowledge and determination to find it. Will that someone be you?